Introduce yourself. I'd like to start by having each of you in turn introduce yourselves and say something about why you're interested in the Yoga Sutras. And Ali, we can start with you. I know why you're interested, but you have to tell everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allie, and I'm here because I um, practice yoga, and I entered into yoga through Zen. And so I just have a, um, passion for learning about yoga and Zen together. So,
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's see, Liz.
Yes, I used to practice yoga. I don't so much do that anymore, although some of the moves I still do in like my stretches and stuff like that when I exercise. But what I what I find interesting when I didn't know they had Yoga Sutras until I don't know, Stan, you did another class about it, and I took that. Um, and I find that studying the other um, traditions around the same time that the Buddha that or influenced the Buddha
Mhm.
helps me understand Buddhism, and also just helps me get out of that real tunnel of this is the only path. Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
It
good,
just helps to open up the mind.
good. Thank you, Liz. Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie. I don't have any real deep reasons except that I do practice yoga and I practice Zen, and I'm just really curious how they might be similar or just the influences between them. And I never heard of the Yoga Sutras until you mentioned it.
Good. Thank you. Natalie?
Yeah, I guess kind of similar to everyone else here. I kind of did opposite to Ali. I sort of started doing yoga and then through that found Zen. So I'm kind of interested to see how they kind of work together.
Mhm.
And yeah, like Julie said, I'm just not like really familiar with the Yoga Sutras, so I'm excited to learn more.
Okay, thank you. TJ?
Good morning. I'm TJ. I first came to yoga, and the yoga practice that I really started with uh, taught about the Yoga Sutras, and that person, Mary Kirkendall, then brought me to the
Oh,
Zen Center. So I'm interested in just learning more about how these, like others have said, the similarities and differences, how the same teachings might be worded from different traditions.
uh,
So,
good, thank you. JC?
Yeah, hi Stan. So I practice at the Kansas Zen Center, and my girlfriend practices yoga. So we joined this session together to see maybe there's some similarities between what we each practice. So I don't know a whole lot about yoga, but curious to learn.
So would you introduce your girlfriend?
Yeah, Erica is on the
Hey,
line.
Erica. So tell us about your interest in this.
Well, quite the opposite. So I practice yoga, but I don't know a lot about Buddhism. So I'm jumping in.
Okay, well, great, that's good. And let's see, who else? Abby?
Yeah, I guess for me, I've practiced yoga and Zen kind of at opposite times in my life in different cycles. And now I'm at a point where I'm practicing both at the same time, but still from a Western approach where one's more physical and the other's more spiritual. So interested to see how much more overlap there is than I understand from that sutra standpoint.
Okay, good, thank you. And who else? Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. So I practice Zen. I've been practicing Zen for quite a while, and I have practiced yoga off and on. And I've actually, this class is timely because I've been thinking over the last month or so, I've been wanting to get back into yoga more. And I'm thinking with with the class and the tying the two together that will help deepen the yoga practice beyond just strengthening and flexibility exercises.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is quite a group we have here. What I'd like to do actually is you all have this document, right? And you might want to have it out right now or just listen. And I'm going to read through the whole thing with pauses when there might be questions or something else I'd like to add. And please feel free to jump in. We'll go kind of paragraph by paragraph, so you won't be interrupting anything. I'll ask at the end of each paragraph if there are any questions, observations. Closing the gap between yoga and Zen. I don't know where I got that title, except that most people don't really deeply associate the two, and they are actually really quite deeply related. So reading from the text, then there doesn't seem to be much in common these days between yoga and Buddhist meditation practice. And Buddhist meditators tend to regard yoga as a system of stretching exercises that might help them sit better and perhaps relieve tension on a long retreat, but otherwise has little or nothing to contribute to their meditation practice. On the other side, the current distance between yoga and Buddhist meditation practices has been expressed with a delicious irony by yoga teacher and author Richard Rosen in one of his recent books. I guess I still consider 2006 to be recent. I don't know about you. In the right millennium. So he says, we yoga people leave meditation to Buddhists, whom we then look at askance because we consider their posture to be deplorable. I don't know that that's applicable anymore. I think it used to be, but since, we've all attained on both sides of these two traditions, perfect enlightenment, we don't feel that way anymore, right? Okay, good. So, but what yoga has largely become during the last 100 years or so, a highly developed system emphasizing scores of physical postures called asanas, a term that means seat. So like a sitting pose originally is what it means. And originally only referred to a handful of sitting positions. Anyway, it's not what it always has been, nor was it at all unrelated to early Buddhism, quite the opposite. They actually did grow up together and influenced each other. And we're talking about starting about a half a millennium before the Common Era. Shall we go on? Okay. So yoga began as a meditation practice. By the middle of the first millennium before the Common Era, yoga was already established as one of the major philosophical spiritual schools in northern India. So when Shakyamuni Buddha left his life as palace prince to lead the homeless life, it was to prominent yoga teachers he turned to first. First, Arada Kalama, and when he mastered his teachings, Buddha was after all a genius, to Udraka Ramaputra. We know their names, a little about their teachings and practice techniques from various sources, including early Buddhist sutras. And the teachings, as far as we can make them out, pointed to reality as consisting of matter and spirit. And spirit, or Atman, a Sanskrit term meaning spirit, pure and clear in itself, has become enmeshed in matter and lost its identity. I've always been troubled by that notion. But going on, the yogic meditation practice Buddha learned was designed to lead to higher and higher levels of samadhi, The etymology of that word is interesting. The sama actually means same. It's an Indo-European root that comes up in English as same, in Latin as similis, for instance. And the dhi means establish. So establishing sameness is what the word means literally. Become one is another way, perhaps, of expressing it. Levels of samadhi culminating in the Atman, or self, becoming liberated from its identification with matter and attaining its original state of absolute independence. This was the sort of teaching that Buddha was exposed to once he decided to lead the homeless life and devote himself to meditation and learning what he could from various spiritual teachers. Pause.
I have a question, Stan.
Yes.
So, the paragraph starts with yoga beginning as a meditation practice, and then by the first millennium BCE, it was already established. Where did it come from? It came out of Hinduism, presumably?
It came from the same place that Hinduism came from, is the best way to put it, I think. And all of this, I'm interested in this myself, and I've looked and looked, and it seems to be lost pretty much in the mist of times. All we can say is it's from early Indic culture, which means that it's Indo-European, which is interesting. So the Indo-European languages, which include Latin and Greek and English and all the Germanic languages and Slavic languages, it's a huge school, but it's interesting that all of these are related, and linguists can, trace back, what must have been the origins. So speaking English, we're actually at home, with this tradition, which wouldn't be the same if we were speaking Korean or Japanese, which are not Indo-European, or Chinese, which is not Indo-European. Well, enough linguistics. Let's go on if that's okay. So, Buddha mastered the levels of samadhi, that his teachers had attained, but found that this experience did not resolve the great question that led him to the spiritual life. Why is there suffering, and what can be done about it? So he was raised in a palace, and his parents his father especially, in the story goes, saw that this kid's going to be attracted to some spiritual teaching, so let's keep these people out of sight, So he grew up pampered in the palace. He had never experienced suffering. So when he finally decides to set out and let's see what's going on, and he does experience suffering for the first time, it really hits him. Why is there suffering, and what can be done about it? I keep coming back to that as, the kind of the fundamental question. And our practice is a response to exactly, that question. So anyway, first he joins a small group devoted to extreme ascetic practice. When he found that this too was unsatisfactory, he set out on his own, isolated himself in the forest, devoted himself to a seated meditation practice, some of the details of which are echoed in the Bhagavad Gita, the earliest yogic text we have, and one that quite possibly existed in oral form during Buddha's life. So here's the Bhagavad Gita. You can't read the fine print, but Stanley Lombardo is the translator. Okay, now you know. You can go out and get it. Had a wonderful time translating the Bhagavad Gita. It's Sanskrit, which is a language that I only partially know. I kind of know how it works and know how to look things up and know how to decipher things, but I can't read it, straight off. But translating the Bhagavad Gita brought me a lot closer to a knowledge of it, of the language. So here is Krishna giving basic meditation instruction to Arjuna. And this takes place on the field of battle, where Arjuna wonders, what the hell are we doing here? You know, Krishna answers him with the full text of the Bhagavad Gita. So, having set up in a clean place, a firm seat, neither high nor low. Does this remind you of the Kansas Zen Center yet? Okay. A seat of kusha grass. You know, I've never actually found out exactly what kusha grass is, but I guess it's kind of cushy. Well, with deerskin and soft cloth on top. Well, we don't have deerskin. Let him sit there and train his mind on one point, controlling his thoughts. So the Bhagavad Gita actually brings up yoga a number of times. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and these are, you know, different paths of yoga for different temperaments. And I don't think we can get much more deeply into it right now than to say that, but I will pause at this point for any questions.
The word yoga, I have heard meaning to yoke together, to join. What,
Yeah,
and in the Bhagavad Gita, they have all these different, as you just mentioned, forms of yoga.
yeah.
We only think of yoga as a physical practice, you know, mostly in our in today's world. Can you elaborate more on why that word has a deeper meaning?
No, I can't elaborate on why it has a different meaning. It developed a deeper meaning. It's cognate, that is related linguistically related to the English word yoke. So we yoke ourselves to practice is the idea of yoga, meaning we completely commit ourselves to practice. That's the original meaning of the word. Of course, now, you know, it's come to be a kind of a mode of exercise, you know, that you can engage in downtown. The tree mark are the three paths of yoga, and they are bhakti yoga, which is devotional, and karma yoga, which, you know, is almost self-explanatory, and jnana yoga, which has to be with learning, knowledge, understanding. Different paths for different temperaments. This is all from what I just said is all really laid out in the Bhagavad Gita, and which is really one of the earliest texts, philosophical texts that we have in any language on anything at all. It's really quite remarkable. It's actually a subset of a much longer text, the Avatamsaka Sutra. But I think we will have to go on, if that's okay right now. Okay. So I turn the page. So it seems clear that Buddha never abandoned his early yogic training in the final stages of his quest. You know, he retires to a forest and devotes himself to seated meditation, and that's something he had learned from yogic teachers. But the liberating insight he attained, he said, ultimately was in contradiction to an essential yogic teaching. There is no Atman in the sense of a permanent individual self, but rather a dependent co-origination of all phenomena, all of which possesses a nature perfect in every way. So it is ignorance of our original completeness and the original completeness of this entire universe. I will add to what I had written here. That is the fundamental cause of suffering. So that was Buddha's quest. You know, he grew up in a palace, a pampered prince. When he first goes out and encounters suffering, it really, really hit him. So from these beginnings, Buddhism and yoga went on to influence each other over the centuries. Excuse me. Sharing teachings, debating philosophical differences, well into the 6th century of the Common Era. And the best evidence for this is actually the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Let me just ask, how many of you are already acquainted, in some sense anyway, with the Yoga Sutras, or has it been hiding away from you? I see one hand, I see a fluttering hand, I see a waving hand. I see. Okay, so it has, you've already introduced yourself, most of you, to this. Anyway, the best evidence for this, that is that it's prominent in the early era of the first millennium, is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, pretty imposing, huh? So there are 195 sutras in the Yoga Sutras, arranged in 4 chapters, and we'll get more into that. So the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which were composed in the 2nd century, the Common Era, and the extensive commentaries on them that began soon after and continued for centuries. So that's what we have facing us. That's what we can avail ourselves of, centuries and centuries of thought given to the Yoga Sutras. So the Yoga Sutras themselves consist of 195 brief aphorisms or threads, and that's the thread is the literal meaning of sutra. Sutra is related to the medical term suture, sew things up, you know. So threads, arranged in 4 chapters, and here are the titles. The first is Samadhi, meaning roughly meditation practice. Sadhana, as practice. Vibhuti is mystic powers. Any of you have any mystic powers? I thought I would ask, just in case you did. Nobody's okay. I don't have any. And Kaivalya, which is absolute independence, and that's the 4th chapter. These are all Sanskrit terms, as I'm sure you realize, that I think are better left in Sanskrit than translated, if the translation is into a single word. You know, they're both Indo-European languages, Sanskrit and English, so you think there'd be, you know, a one-word match for each of these, but the best you can do is a phrase or two, I think, to explain them. Anyway, the terseness of the Sanskrit text, I'm talking about the terseness of the text of the Yoga Sutras, the 195 Yoga Sutras in 4 chapters, suggests that the sutras are mnemonic devices summarizing an older oral tradition. I never would have suspected this until I happened to read this somewhere. Um, it um, and I still don't quite get this. I don't know if any of you are, familiar enough with the sutras to say if you really get that or not. That they were originally mnemonic devices summarizing an older tradition. Um, that the tradition was old, I get that, but that the wording of the sutras themselves are mnemonic devices. Um, I don't know where I got that actually. I didn't make it up. That's all I can say. Okay. Never would have made it up. Don't get it.
Well, Stan, aren't mnemonic devices the ones like My Very Educated Mother, where the first word?
Yeah, that's one possibility. I don't think that's operative in the sutras. You
That's
can
what I was
go,
trying to figure out because that doesn't make sense.
yeah, I don't know. And
Huh.
I didn't make this up, but I didn't record what I was reading when I came across it. So I'm sorry, I can't, I can't help you. Um, but it's plausible enough. Texts, written text, until more recently than most of us can imagine, were very hard to come by. Uh, you would memorize. People's memories were trained and much better than ours. I mean, the people who cared about this, the academics and, the practitioners. Anyway, summarizing an older oral tradition. One of the very first sutras, which is the second actually in the first chapter, um, suggests that's a yoga, and he goes like this: yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind, and strikes the keynote. So yoga's primary concern is meditation, and I'm pretty sure that all of you are familiar enough with meditation practice to appreciate what is meant by stilling the fluctuations of the mind. Have any of you succeeded in doing that completely? I haven't, for sure. Started formal Zen practice in 1977, and I'm still working on it. I'll let you know if I ever get there, okay? So, the most striking example in the Yoga Sutras of cross influences between Buddhism and yoga can be seen by comparing the 8 limbs of yoga. Yoga Ashtanga, Ashtanga just means 8, as presented by Patanjali. That's yoga, I have a plural there, should be a singular. Yoga Sutra, chapter 229. With Buddhism's traditional noble eightfold path. And then we had the Sanskrit for noble eightfold path. The Arya, as the Aryans as a race, they're the noble race, Ashtanga, 8, and Marga is path. And that's the first stated tradition of this. Anyway, first stated tradition has it by Buddha in his first speech after his enlightenment. So his first speech, maybe it was structured around the noble eightfold path, the Arya Ashtanga Marga. So here, the 2 columns, we're comparing, excuse me, the yogic eightfold path with the Buddhist eightfold path. So the 8 limbs of yoga is Yoga Ashtanga, 8 limbs of yoga. And look, I'll just read through them, just straight through. Samyak Drishti in Buddhism is, what does Samyak mean? It means complete or perfect or something like that. So I won't translate it anymore, but we have Drishti is view. Sankalpa is intention. So once you see things, you're motivated to, do something. That's your intention. and Vak, which is cognate with, our word voice, Latin word vox, so speech. Karmanta, action, and of course that's the word karma made into an abstract active noun. Ajiva is livelihood. Vyayama is effort. Doesn't that sound like effort? Vyayama. Smriti is attention. And samadhi, a word that we've all come across, is samadhi. So comparing that to the 8 limbs of yoga, we have yama, which is moral restraints. Niyama, ethical observances. And you kind of wonder what's the difference between moral restraints and ethical observances. One is negative restraints, and the other is positive observances, things that you don't do and things that you do. And then getting down to it, asana, seated posture, pranayama, breath control, pratyahara, sense withdrawal, dharana, concentration, dhyana, meditation. So that's the Sanskrit word for meditation. The Chinese pronounce the chana, which they shorten to chan, which when the Japanese brought Buddhism from China to Japan, they pronounced chan as Zen, and that's where we get the word Zen. It's kind of a long history. And samadhi. And again, samadhi, our best translation of it is sun synonyms become one. Literally, it's establishing sameness, so become one with the universe. So those are the limbs of yoga, and parallel to the Noble Eightfold Path. What can we say about it? So continuing to read, both systems have similar overall structures, foregrounding moral and ethical practice. So we have moral restraints and ethical observances as the first 2 limbs, and view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, attention. It's how we act, in our different modes of acting. And then the progressive stages of meditation practice, both of them culminate in samadhi. And it's worth noting that the moral restraints in the first limb of yoga, as detailed in the Yoga Sutras, and it's Yoga Sutra chapter 2, verse 29, are almost identical to the traditional Buddhist 5 precepts, and are presented as allowing no exceptions whatsoever. So many of you have taken the 5 precepts. Can any of you name the 5 precepts that you've taken?
Don't
Yes?
kill,
Don't kill.
don't steal,
Don't steal.
no actions in lust,
Yeah.
um,
Between
into-
those 2, we have don't lie is in there somewhere. Between,
right, and then intoxicants taken to produce heedlessness or induce
yeah,
heedlessness.
yeah, intoxicants taken to produce heedlessness. That kind of, I don't know, it leaves open the possibility, I don't want to get heedless. I just want to, have a good time. So have a drink. But the intention is the same. Maybe that could be worded better. Let me know if you get a better wording of that precept. Okay, so the precepts. And the precepts allow no exceptions, whatever. Do you have that understanding of the precepts? No exceptions, whatever? Or does Zen kind of open things up a little? Any observations on that? Maybe we better not get into it then.
To me, Zen opens it up because, there's even the line, know when the precepts are open and when they're closed.
Right. And when would they be open? And when would they be closed? Closed means you got to obey it no matter what, damn it.
Yes.
Open for
Means
what?
situation. Depends on the situation.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to help people actually by breaking a precept, that kind of situation. So very good, thank you. So where were we? Yogic limbs 3 through 8 begin with the basics of meditation. This is how you sit, this is how you breathe. Then take us through deepening stages of sensory and mental absorption. Have any of you, before looking at this handout even, or encountered the 8 limbs of yoga anywhere else? Yeah, you have. So you were studying yoga, or how did you come across them?
I did take the 200-hour teacher certification course. And so we did read the Patanjali.
Oh, good. So you've read all the Yoga Sutras.
Well, at least skimmed them. It's long.
Hey, what about you, TJ?
Yeah, just with Mary Kirkendall and Geeta Tiwari. They
Yeah.
Geeta still does a class on the Yoga Sutras. So she,
Is she still teaching it? Yeah.
mhm.
She and I started that about 10 years ago. And we had almost a complete version of the Yoga Sutras. And then, things tend to drift apart. Yeah, but she knows what she's talking about. Okay, there are many other indications of the Yoga Sutras, indications of common ground between Buddhism and classical yoga. And here's just a few examples. So Yoga Sutra chapter 1, 33 recommends cultivating an attitude of friendship, and the Sanskrit there is maitri, which also translated as kindness, toward happy persons, compassion, karuna, toward the distressed, joy, mudita, toward the virtuous, and equanimity, upeksha, toward the vicious. These 4 virtues are identical to the 4 Brahma Viharas in Buddhism. And once again, the 2 traditions really intersecting. It's hard to know how they influence each other. Which one is borrowing from which one, or is it just a long history of mutual exchanges and you really can't trace it back? Yoga Sutra, chapter 1, verse 41, compares samadhi to a transparent jewel, taking on the form of whatever is before it. Have you ever done that? You take the diamond out of your ring. Yeah, right, okay, and you hold it up, and you can see all sorts of little reflections, coming from this way, coming from that way. And so that's the analogy here, taking on the form of whatever is before it. Transparent jewel. And compare the familiar Buddhist trope of mirror mind. That's a phrase that you're probably all familiar with. So reflect just exactly what's there, and try to have a mirror that doesn't distort it in any way, either magnifying it or diminishing it or just screwing it up because the optics aren't so good. And then 149, samadhi has a different focus from that of discursive reasoning or scripture. Compare Bodhidharma's direct pointing to the human heart mind without reliance on words or scriptures. Well, if we take that exclusively and really deeply, there go the Yoga Sutras. They're nothing but words. So don't be attached to words, directly pointing to the human heart mind without reliance on words or scriptures. How do you do that? And Yoga Sutra 2.3 lists as impediments to yoga practice the kleshas. That's a Sanskrit word that literally means something like defilement, referencing especially desire, aversion, ignorance, and a self of sense. And we can compare the second great vow of Mahayana Buddhism as we chant it before every practice. The second vow is delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. Pause here for observations, questions, discussion.
I have a question about when the yogic sutras are using the word meditation, are they always pointing to seated meditation? Or is the movement, I believe they're called asanas, but I don't know if I have my terminology correct.
Yeah,
Are those considered meditation
yeah,
as
I
well?
understand. Yeah. My assumption is yes, but I don't have any textual evidence for that. It seems that that's what makes more sense to me. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I know when I was doing yoga, I mean, that's what I liked about it, is that I
Uh-huh.
would have to practice, I'd have to focus on my breath
Yeah.
and focus on my posture,
Hmm.
and then the movement from one to the other. Um, am I moving correctly? And that kind of takes the form of like what the quantum school is of saying, whatever your practice is, mine, what is this? Don't know, or the chant or whatever, but you're you're really, anyway, how I practiced it, which may not have been correct, was that concentration, and you're using the movement and your breath as the form of concentration.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a very good understanding of this. So thank you very much. Let's see, where are we? Middle of the page here. There are, of course, significant differences between the two traditions as well. In addition to their already mentioned divergent positions on selfhood, there is in classical yoga no real equivalent that I can find to Buddhism's bodhisattva ideal for all beings, is maybe the best way to express, or one good way to express the bodhisattva ideal. Nevertheless, it is clear that yoga was originally grounded in meditation practice, and remained so for centuries. And the process by which it has been transformed into a largely postural practice in modern times has been definitively laid out by Mark Singleton in his book, Yoga Body. And one promising way modern yoga might recover its meditative origins, I think it is actually recovering it, has been suggested by Edwin Bryant, the author of this book, whose magisterial edition of the Yoga Sutras, and it is indeed magisterial, I have used freely in this essay. In his commentary on Yoga Sutra 139, first chapter, number 39, which states that anything whatsoever can be used as the object of meditation, Bryant calls attention to a proposal by the great yoga teacher, BKS Iyengar. Most of you have probably at least heard of Iyengar Yoga. In his own book, Yoga, the Tree of Knowledge, that the yoga posture itself be the object of meditation. I think all of us who practice Zen, understand this. We all pay attention to our posture. And we simply paying attention to posture can be the meditation practice. Anyway, here is Bryant. So approaching asana, sitting, in this way as a bona fide support for fixing the mind and one for which many people in the West might be best suited, is thus fully within Patanjali's system, provided it is performed with this intent rather than some other superficial motive. Indeed, this approach constitutes a unique contribution, not just to the history of yoga as it had been transmitted over the centuries, but more important, also to the participational possibilities of the practice of yoga as it is being transmitted in a present-day mainstream context. People who might otherwise be disinterested in some of the other truth claims of yoga are very attracted to asana, albeit often for physical rather than spiritual reasons. Even if this is the case, if the mind is fully fixed and absorbed without distraction on the practice of asana, for whatever motive, it can still attain, the mind can still attain a fixity and stillness. Pause here for observations, comments.
One thing I will say is so this is this Bryant or Iyengar?
I think
Oh, that's Bryant.
yeah, Brian.
I like that last thing about that even if you're going into like yoga poses, the asanas, that even if you're not going into it with a meditative intent, if you're doing it, for fitness or whatever, it can still have the other effects.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else have comment on that? Any experience one way or the other?
I would say that was true for me. I went into yoga definitely for fitness and found that it took away anxiety and allowed me to really concentrate in the moment. I didn't call it meditation, but certainly that is, one of the benefits.
Yeah, good. I think most people would. The two seem to grow naturally together. So continuing on the next page, what we were just talking about, seems like a promising approach, one that could draw current yoga students into a congenial but serious meditation practice, and one that could possibly be useful for Zen students who are interested, as we all should be, in bringing our practice off the cushion and into our lives as a whole. So whatever you're doing, that's a posture in the broad definition of posture. So what this amounts to is simply pay attention to where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. Yeah, then you're a real yogi. So Buddha was a yogi and made full use of the resources of the traditions of his time. I'd like to know, is this somewhat of a revelation, just that Buddha was a yogi? I mean, maybe not a revelation, but do you think of Buddha as a yogi?
I do, but only because of previous teachings about this subject, not because of some original
Yeah,
thought.
right. Well, it's somebody's original thought. I think it's a
Clarify,
very.
not my original thought.
I don't claim to have it as my original thought either. Well, it might be, but my memory is not good enough to verify that one way or another. Just wait until you're in your 80s. You'll know what I mean. Anybody here 80? Good. None of you look 80, so that's good. Okay, then, epilogue. The Yoga Sutras as koans. I don't know how I came across this idea, the Yoga Sutras as koans. The excerpts that I have here are from chapters 1 and 2. And here in Yoga Sutra 1, we simply have the statement, of the particular sutra. And here's 1.1. The very first statement is now instruction in yoga. So I've written a poem that corresponds in some way to each statement. Here it's, the great way has no gate, enter freely anywhere. But if you still need instruction, pay attention, pay attention. And then a question, which would be a koan question. So if you came in for a Zen interview with in a tradition that has koan practice, you might well be asked if this ever gets published and anybody ever reads it. You might now get the question. So what is instruction? So some of you are really familiar, I know, with koan practice. And you know that you give a very blunt answer to a koan question. You don't elaborate, you just shoot it square in the eyes. I'm not going to ask for any answer to this. I don't want any answer to it. I want to leave it as a question for, if this ever gets published. I have no idea if it will. But before we go on any further, please turn to, where is it? Yeah, Yoga Sutra 2, so several pages down it will be. I'll turn it over. Yeah, I don't have these pages numbers, apologies, but Yoga Sutras 2, so chapter 2, in other words, of the Yoga Sutra. Here I have not just a statement of the case, but some kind of explanation, and then the poem, the Zen poem, and the question. So this one is Yoga Sutras 2 with Zen poems and Koan questions. Number 1, Kriya Yoga involves austerity, self-study, and dedication to Ishvara. So that is, the case. And then I have an explanation. Kriya means action. So Kriya Yoga involves more activity than the meditation practices laid out in chapter 1. Tapas, now it strikes me that I should have the statement in Sanskrit as well, because this is the Sanskrit term. Tapas, here translated as austerity, also means order, discipline. And another word, which you don't see here because I don't have the sutra in Koan, but svadhyaya, self-study, usually means study and or recitation of the scriptures, but here it goes along with pranidhani, which is a word that has occurred earlier, which means dedication, and with it is it is directed toward Ishvara, the Lord, as in Sutras 23 to 28. So that's my explanation of the statement of Yoga Sutras 2, number 1. And here the question is, the Koan question is, well, what is supreme effort? How many of you have, do Koan interviews? Can you raise your hand? If you, and that's all of you, right? Okay, so you all know what I'm talking about. So what is supreme effort? How would you answer this? We're giving it away, I know, but that's okay. Any volunteers? What is supreme effort?
Don't know, only go straight.
No, you got to just do it. So a good answer would be you drop to the floor and do 40 push-ups. Unless you're really, really in shape, then you'd have to do 50 or 60 or something. Yeah, action is always better than words in answering a kongan, by the way. Well, I'm not going to go through, all of these, but as I said, it seems that I need even more than what we have here. Maybe not. So completely state the case rather than paraphrase it. Anyway, that's what I've got going. And I do intend, and in fact, I have it 3/4 done. I've done all of chapter 1, chapter 2, about a little less than half of chapter 3, and all of chapter 4. So I'd like to finish it. I don't know why I haven't yet. Don't hold up your hand now, but if any of you would like to help me with this in some kind of way, I have a job for you, and all I can promise as compensation is you will be highlighted in the introduction of the book whenever it gets published, and therefore attain immortality. Well, anyway, let me know if you want to help, because I could use some. And any final questions now? We've been just about 1 hour. I think it was advertised for 2 hours, but I don't know whose idea that was. I don't
have a
think I
question,
for 2
Stan.
hours. Yeah.
It's on one of the Zen poems. It's in the Yoga Sutra 1. It's 1.11. Memory is the retention of something that has been experienced.
Yeah.
So then the Zen poem says, clinging to memory, this moment is lost. Attaining this moment, there is nothing to remember. And so I think I understand the idea that it's like, don't get lost. If you're lost in the past and in memory, you're not seeing what's right before you. But the flip side, memory is important. We can't forget things.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. So you're asking me to provide the answer to what's going to be a kongan. And we usually don't do that sort of thing. So, but if you give me your answer and I approve, I will tell everyone right now, and you will attain immortal glory. So, what's your answer? Read the question again.
oh, but my question was, but memory is important. So, and there is stuff to remember.
Yeah.
So what is this? I don't know what my question is. Like, what does this mean? Because there is stuff like Nazi Germany. We have to remember that. We have to remember things in the
And
past.
right. And so your answer to this as a kongan should express that. And you don't have to do it right now and give it away
Okay.
to everybody.
Okay. I thought you were putting me on the spot to come up with an answer.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Most of you have some experience with koans, I assume, and you know that you can work on a given kongan literally for years. Maybe some of you have had that experience. If you're, well, I certainly have. And so, let me just put it this way. What do you think in general of the idea of turning these into kongans and trying to get it published? Plus, minus, or indifference?
Why not?
Thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, we got more thumbs up than down anyway. Yeah, I'm going to persevere. And let me know, by text or whatever, if you'd like to help in some kind of way.
What kind of help are you looking for, Stan?
Well, bouncing ideas off people. You know, you think you have a great idea and you show it to someone else and, well, maybe not so great. You've had that experience? I think all of us have. Um, I don't mean, well, of course, you know, the text has to be copy edited, but I'm not asking for that. I think it's in pretty good shape as far as just regular copy editing is concerned. But you know how the kongans are presented. Um, you know, made all of these up right out of the Yoga Sutras. So that's it's a gold mine actually for kongans. Who would have thought? And so I want that to come through in whatever way this is published. And if you want to volunteer just for me to bounce ideas off you, and I can see that, you know, it's hard to see things for yourself. You think, well, that's a good idea. And, you know, you run it by 2 or 3 people that you respect, and then maybe you change your mind about it. You know, that's what I'm talking about.
I really like the part where you have a little intro to the Yoga Sutra and then the poem and then the koan. I love that.
You like that structure? Okay.
I really love it.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
it really brings the two together, and it's simple. You know, whether you're approaching it from more of a Buddhist and you're interested in yoga, or whether you're more yogic and interested in Buddhism, it's simple to understand.
Okay, thank you. And do you like, you know, the explanatory paragraph I have with each one? You
I
think
love it. Yeah, I like that a
usually
lot.
it ought to be there? Okay, as I said, mostly they're there, and I took them out just to see what it would be like without using them. And I have maybe 20 or 30 in chapter 3 to go. So anything else? This has been, you know, very interesting and very valuable for me, and I really thank all of you.
Stan,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just remembered I had wrote down a question at the beginning.
Oh,
So
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No.
A
What's the
long time ago, I think it was you that talked about a book by a Zen teacher. And I remember talking to Allie about it, and Allie didn't know, I don't think you knew what I was talking about at the time, Allie. But it was some book that had 6 poses, 6 yoga poses that he suggests, I think it was 6, that are essential to somebody who's practicing meditation.
Well, that rings a faint bell in the distance.
I think it was kind of a yellowish colored book, pale yellow, for whatever that's worth.
I have a yellowish colored book on the Yoga Sutras.
It was, like I said, I think it was mostly Zen, but
It was mostly a book.
it was mostly about Zen practice.
Wasn't this, was it?
No,
I'm still looking for the other one, which is definitely about the Yoga Sutras. What do I do with it?
I can always do some research and throw it out there and see if
Oh,
anybody.
here's a yellow Yoga Sutra book. Wasn't this?
No,
No, okay. That's all the
no.
yellow Yoga Sutra books that I have.
Okay. Yeah, it was something, it was by
Yeah,
a
please
Zen
do.
teacher.
And any of you, if you think of anything that you know you think might help, or just want to run something by me for yourself, I'm always available. I'm still breathing anyway, so it's kind of a good sign. So, anything else? Okay, let's sign off then. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stan.
You are